So I am Dave Bilbrough. I am the product evangelist for the Adobe Marketing Cloud. Apologies that I was not able to be there in Seattle this evening to be there in person to speak with everybody. But thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to the team tonight and go through just a couple things on the Marketing Cloud side. Now, I have some program material prepared here that we will look at. I have worked with the team to come up with what we want to do, and items of interest include I've got the 2016 overview of the Marketing Cloud. Won't spend a ton of time on that. I understand there's a lot of folks in the group fairly familiar with the Marketing Cloud, but we will talk about Audience Manager. I've got a lot of Audience Manager program material and a lot of Audience Manager experience. And then finally, we are going to talk quite a bit about the Adobe Device Co-op. So if you're familiar with the Device Co-op, this year at Summit, our big announcement was how we are going to work with customers to create a device co-op that allows marketers to identify people that are behind, or rather identify the number of people that are behind the devices that interact with their digital marketing. Now, I want to be interactive, so if we have questions, comments, and things like that, I don't know, is there a chat pod? I'm not super familiar with the software.
There is, yeah, there is a Q&A.
Okay, got it. Okay, it's open on my desktop now. Perfect. Okay, so I've got the Q&A pod open, so feel free to drop a question in there if anybody has a question. And with that, let's get started. Now, can you guys help me understand a little bit who's there in the audience in terms of experience level and everything else? That'll be really helpful as I speak through some of this.
Dave, no one is able to talk. It seems like the audio settings for participants, they're not able to talk, and since this meeting has already started, I'm not able to change the settings. So let me see if I could.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, no one has audio. Okay, there we go. I think now you guys should be able to. I think we have audio now from everyone else. Sunil, can you hear us?
I think so. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yes.
Yeah, now the audio enabled.
All right, there you go.
Awesome.
Sorry about that, guys.
Awesome. Tell me a little bit more about who's on the line.
Hey, this is Upen. Thanks so much for doing this. I've been emailing you. I'm not sure whether you, and we had this call this afternoon. So I have been working in AEM for the past 4.5 years, and I've worked in 3 or 4 different clients, and currently I'm working for the VF Corp, which is basically Vans, based in Los Angeles. I'm working as an architect there. But Audience Manager is something that I have not had a chance to work on, so I'm very excited to listen to that today.
Awesome. Anybody else on the line want to give an intro?
Hey, this is Sunil. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, so this is Sunil. So I work as an AEM architect with Artyllect. I worked with AEM for almost 6 years. So I am just curious to know how the Audience Manager fit into the Marketing Cloud products and also compared to the Oracle Bouquet. I think both these products offer the similar capabilities.
Awesome.
This is Dave Bench. I've been working with the Marketing Cloud 2000 or a while. You know me. Hi, Dave.
Yep,
you know me. Hi, Dave.
I know you. Awesome. And anybody else on the line?
Looks like it.
Awesome. Sweet. Well, let's dig in. Let's hop right in. Why is PowerPoint not working? There we go. All right, so I start every Marketing Cloud overview the same way with the Marketing Cloud value proposition that is, in fact, the Adobe promise that we help our customers deliver standout digital experiences that drive business impact. Achieving this is more complicated than meets the eye normally. I mean, it requires you to have a relevant, consistent, and effective customer conversation. Requires consolidated data, data-driven decisions, unified messaging that is going to create a consistent experience. How does the Adobe Marketing Cloud get there? We have 8 solutions that sit over top of 5 core services that sit over top of a platform built on data and content. So real quick going through these. We have Adobe Media Optimizer. That's our programmatic media tool. A little bit about my background. I was one of the original beta customers of Adobe Media Optimizer back when it was called Efficient Frontier. I ran digital media for Wells Fargo for 2 years. We were an early adopter of the Adobe Media Optimizer platform. Next, from left to right, is Adobe Social. Adobe Social is our social listening and social campaign management tool. Keep an eye on that space this year. We have some exciting new stuff coming out as part of Adobe Social. Moving ahead, Audience Manager. We're going to talk quite a bit about Audience Manager today. Certainly fresh on my mind. I've literally been talking about Audience Manager just about all day at this point. So we'll get into that in just a little bit. Target, I think there's a fair amount of target expertise on the phone, but just to cover it real quick, that is the personalization and optimization platform of the Marketing Cloud. Moving to the right, we have Adobe Primetime. A lot of people aren't familiar with Adobe Primetime that they're aware of, but they are aware of Adobe Primetime because if you watch HBO Go, watch ESPN, any other number of platforms, I mean, Comcast has built their new set-top box, digital video streaming platform on top of Adobe Primetime. MLB Media broadcasts Major League Baseball, WWF Wrestling, and a few other things, all based on Primetime. Really successful product. It combines SDKs that bring analytics, Audience Manager, and Target into video streaming and combines it with an ad insertion API. So if you have to create, stream, protect, monetize your video content, Primetime is your tool. And then moving to the right, Experience Manager, also a fair amount of AEM expertise on the phone, but we all know that is the platform with which content is managed for the Marketing Cloud. Moving to the right, we have Adobe Campaign is our campaign management platform. And then Adobe Analytics is our web analytics and marketing analytics tool. Moving down to core services, we have the People core service. Now, what our core services are applications that extends the various Marketing Cloud APIs in a manner that a lot of customers have found helpful. So what People does is it extends some of the first-party data management technology of Audience Manager, and it extends it into the audience APIs of Analytics, Target, Experience Manager, and Campaign. More to come with that this year. Places is a service within the mobile services SDK that provides location-based marketing. Assets is our asset management core service that helps you keep all of the assets that you're leveraging for Target or other tools in one place. Mobile services is how we manage the SDKs that get our tools into Android, iOS, BlackBerry OS, Windows OS, and actually a couple of other even less common platforms. And then finally, activation. Most people on the phone probably know it as DTM. Now, our strategy here at Adobe is to partner with the best of the business, partners like Artyllect Consulting that help us deliver our products to provide value for customers. We have 8 of the 10 largest business transformation consultancies. We have 10 of the 10 largest digital agencies. We have 4 out of 5 top global media agencies, 200 plus solution integrators. I mean, we have just a long list of companies that are Adobe preferred partners that help us to deliver that Adobe promise with industry leading customers. And if you go around this like a clock here, you see that 9 out of 10 of America's largest corporations, 9 out of 10 of the world's biggest hotel chains, 10 out of 10 of the largest media companies, 10 out of 10 of the largest financial services companies, 10 out of 10 of the largest auto, they're Adobe customers, Marketing Cloud customers specifically. And as we move into 2016, most of these have more than one solutions. Because we've brought a platform to bear. And how does the industry like our platform-based approach? Well, they awarded us, there we are, all by ourselves in the top right corner, 2016. They've just redone this wave, similar story. I'll leave 2014 up though, because I love this quote here from the 2014 approach that Adobe distinguishes itself with its core service capabilities. And we're going to dig into this as we talk about Audience Manager, because this is how, by integrating these tools together, we are able to create an ecosystem where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So with that, let's transition right into Audience Manager, because we're going to talk quite a bit about how Audience Manager supports the rest of the cloud. So Audience Manager, as you may know, is a data management platform. But what is a data management platform? So in this case, I want to qualify this by quoting Forrester, that it's a unified technology platform that intakes disparate first, second, and third-party data sets, provides normalization and segmentation on that data, and allows a user to push the resulting segmentation into live interactive channel environments. So what we're doing is we're taking data in, first, second, and third party. We're allowing you to normalize and segment that data, and then we're moving it out to where you need it. So let's break down the parts of the sentence. First things first. What do I mean when I say first-party data? First-party data is data collected directly by your organization. And by your organization, I mean the organization that is the Audience Manager customer. So if Corporation XYZ is an Audience Manager customer, data that XYZ collects on their customers constitutes first-party data. That can include web behavior, survey responses, CRM data, call center data, point-of-sale data, media performance data, and PII data, but I want to note we can only pass that PII data into Adobe Campaign. Second party data gets a little bit more esoteric, but it's a partner's first party data. So data shared between a first party and another first party becomes second party data. And there's an example here where data shared between a credit card company and a co-brand partner, such as an airline. So if for example, if you have a airline affinity card and the card issuer shares your data on your usage of that card with that airline, that is considered second-party data to that airline. It's collected on their behalf by a partner that is a first party to the consumer. Now finally, third-party data. Third parties aggregated data from other sources usually can be purchased, and we've got some examples here. Geographic, spend pattern data, and demographic data, and you might be familiar with providers like Excelate, Axiom, Newstar. I mean, there's quite a few that you run into in nature. But this is one of the biggest tripping points of Audience Manager. So take a good look, and of course I can send these slides out later, but take a good look and understand first party, second party, and third party data. Now, what actually makes up, you know, a DMP? Well, we're trying to solve for some problems here. So as marketers, these are all things that we run across here. We have multiple databases and data technologies. We have multiple channels. That creates a disjointed experience for the customers. So you can see where the challenge is that each system has its own audience, which equals message overlap. We might have an analysis platform that's getting us audience data based on, you know, on-site behavior. Might have a testing platform that's getting us data on how customers are interacting with our tests. We might have a campaign management platform. Might also have a DMP that's being used to buy media. The problem is these audiences are not the same across platforms, not the same across the systems, not the same for customers to use. So what did we do to solve all that problems? Well, we created Audience Manager. So how does it work? Well, data comes in, we apply logic and segmentation, and then data goes out. So our first step is we collect data. This happens when a customer gets to a site or views a pixeled ad. So in my previous example with XYZ Corp, let's pretend that a customer arrives at their website and Audience Manager drops a cookie that creates a profile for that user. We are now collecting data. We can also collect data by pixeling an ad. We can also collect data by shopping to a third party. We can also collect data by uploading it ourselves. But in this case, let's say that we are just collecting data that's coming in from a number of sources here. Our second step is we have to unify that data into a profile. And this is part of the secret sauce of Audience Manager, because it's simple enough. Like when you start talking about a DMP, invariably there's somebody in the room that is either a database analyst, a DBA, or someone that's a CRM expert, and they go, my system can do all that. And it's like, yeah, I'm sure it can, but your system requires like a common key, usually like an email address or something like that. Audience Manager is actually going to unify data to a profile that's going to leverage a consolidated ID like the Marketing Cloud Visitor ID service. So let that sink in for a minute. As Audience Manager is unifying that data, it's breaking down profiles. It's allowing you to do profile merge based on rules that you set. And it's helping to understand, is this user new? Is this a user that maybe cleared cookies? Is this the same user from another device? How do I then create one profile out of all of that? Then from there, we give the marketer the freedom to actually create audiences. So we have those profiles, we've consolidated, and we have all of those data points, and we're going to allow that marketer to go in and actually create audiences based on the data that they have. Once they create that data, we then make that data portable to the rest of the organization. And I've got some examples there where there's social campaigns, there's on-site personalization, there's mobile campaigns, there's point of sale, there's even a digital sign, it looks like. We have a lot of places where we have to send data. So before we get kind of deep into the features, let's review kind of what we have here. Audience Manager, leader in the DMP space. Forrester and Gartner both put us alone in the top right for the DMP waves that they did this year. Leverages your own first-party data for through the native integration with Adobe Analytics. We're the only one that has that. For those of you in the room that understand analytics, what that means is once you have provisioned Audience Manager, you are then able to leverage through at measurement to do server-side forwarding of calls so that Audience Manager does not need its own tag. Meaning any prop, any var, anything else that you have in analytics can then become a trait in Audience Manager in real time. Very neat stuff, very lightweight on the page, very simple for an integration purposes. And then the second most asked for feature this year that we just implemented in the spring release of Analytics is segments from Audience Manager are now forwarded directly into Adobe Analytics. So if you create a segment or an audience in Audience Manager, it gets put directly into Analytics for use to analyze how your campaign went. So kind of moving forward, you can see Audience Manager is kind of the backbone of the Marketing Cloud here. It provides the identity service. It creates the consolidated data platform. And that consolidated data platform is critical for the rest of the applications to work properly. The profiles and audiences or people core service built on the technology of Audience Manager. It is a part of what connects all of the Marketing Cloud tools together, and it provides real-time activation hub for ad and MarTech ecosystems. So site-side personalization, third-party media spend, everything else. Audience Manager allows you to activate your audiences in real time for it. So kind of just some examples here in terms of how things work. But the slide that really, I think, helps users really understand what's happening here is this one. Now, before I start getting deep into like the DMP specific features here, any questions before we go forward? All right, I'm going to take silence as golden. This slide really helps to illustrate what makes Audience Manager a leader, because the data management platform is only as good as the data that it can ingest natively. And you can see here the types of data that Audience Manager gets natively.
Hey,
so
Dave,
we have,
I have a question. This is the other Dave. On your slide here, I see people on the right and I see DSPs on the left. What would you label the stuff on the right? There's no label in the box. It has like kind of faded stuff in it. Is it? Yeah, what's over there?
Yeah, it looked different. Let me see if it doesn't. Like if I've just not.
Like it's scaled weird or something.
Yeah, let me see this real quick. There we go.
Oh, all right. There we go. Now it makes a lot more sense.
Much better. Yeah, much better. I think this is not the only one that suffered from this problem. Hang on. Yeah, that's gonna hurt. That's gonna help.
Yeah, that's not gonna work. Well, that slide is gonna be terrible.
There we go.
And are you gonna send out the deck afterwards?
Yep.
Cool. Awesome.
Let's see, where was I here? This one. There we go. So on the right, where there's people, those are all third-party providers of segmentation data. So you see LiveRamp and Nielsen and Epsilon and Axiom, TransUnion, Hutu, Exalate. There's even a couple in there that I'm not familiar with. MasterCard's got one, TransUnion has one. Then on the left, you have like onboarding services. So those are, Rocket Fuel, Turn. Those are DSPs, DataShoe, MediaMath, DoubleClick, right? Those all meet in the middle. And then there's a number of other types of platform that we have a pre-built server-to-server integration with. And, that includes like offline data like DataLogix and LiveRamp, targeting platforms, ad servers, Weborama, DoubleClick, Atlas, Seismic. There are, just for the partners and Adobe folks on the phone, I mean, there's an Excel spreadsheet that's like updated once a week that you can get a hold of that spells out 100% of these, and like we are literally adding integrations to it every week. And when customers ask, like if a customer says, hey, we're doing business with this DSP or we're doing business with this whatever, if it's not on the list, like we just add it to the list and then we build the integration for them. So that's kind of a unique thing that we do. Just because,
it's on the bottom, kind of is on the bottom kind of what we used to call Genesis plugins. Are these decorating the data after that comes into Adobe? Is that what the bottom section is?
No, the bottom section, I mean, those are all data sources for Audience Manager. And like, I guess like I'll give examples like we might need a native connection to Visual IQ if a customer wants to get their segments that they're buying their double-click media on into Visual IQ or Odometry, or like the social and graph data, like Gigya, like that helps. Like if I'm a customer and I want to, I mean, like it's not fundamentally different than Genesis, but like I don't want to associate with Genesis because like it's a whole different set of APIs than Genesis used, and a lot of these integrations are in real time.
Cool.
But same concept, yeah.
Same concept, newer approach, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then also some of these, like the way that we maintain some of these connections, I mean, getting like, you know, kind of deep on Audience Manager here, like some of those third-party providers, we're actually able to match up like the Adobe cookie for a particular customer versus the Axiom cookie for a particular customer. And that's important to note because like that person's anonymous, you know, like that consumer, we don't necessarily know who they are. We don't know their name. We don't know anything else. But we know that like our value 123 cookie is the same as Axiom's ABC. And that's important because one of the features we're going to talk about in a minute is the Audience Marketplace, where you can actually purchase lists of customers for usage. So let's dig into some of these cool features. You know, we talked a little bit about, you know, Adobe Audience Manager is the only DMP that actually integrates with analytics. You know, data collected in analytics is passed into Audience Manager without need for a third-party cookie. That's important. That's really important because most DMPs operate on third-party cookies. And they, like DMPs need third-party cookies to operate in the ad tech ecosystem. But if you're doing site-side personalization and a lot of your customers are using Safari or are otherwise weary of third-party cookies, you know, if they're a Firefox user or a Safari user, you may actually not be able to personalize that customer. So being able to leverage analytics first-party cookie, it's critical. Also allows for first-party domain data collection because, you know, if you know how to leverage RDC with analytics, you are able to, you know, build like metrics.mysite.com as a, you know, as a way to get your analytics data out. So, you know, kind of digging a little bit deeper into this, these features add up to things like identity as a service, where we can use our analytics integration along with our first and third-party data to create like a cross-device view. And this is not the device co-op I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. This is cross-device Audience Manager. So Audience Manager has what's called profile merge, we'll talk more about in a minute, that actually allows you to specify how our profiles click together. So that could mean that a specific piece of information is designated as a login ID that we want to collapse profiles based on, or it could mean that I'm going to get a specific piece of data. You know, it could be a residential IP. It could be, I mean, there's a number of things that you can specify as rules, or you can use a third-party identity service to then do your cross-device. That helps you create a 360-degree view. All of a sudden, hey, we know more about this customer. We know more about what's happening with them than just what we're doing. When we move into the data platform aspect, creating that 360-degree view with, you know, profile link and our first-party data starts to allow us, you know, our next biggest concern is, well, we got to activate this data. So want to be able to activate the data everywhere, and that could mean on a third-party exchange. It could mean first-party. It could mean we want it to go to a specific partner. That's all available with our data export controls. And then the coolest feature, I think, is what I call there the Audience Marketplace. Audience Marketplace is where I can go in and say, these are my best customers that are in this segment, and I can shop through third-party data providers and find out either A, what data can you tell me about this group of customers? So I can bring a cookie pool in and say, this cookie pool is my favorite customers. How many data points, you know, how many matches do you have, you know, Axiom, how many matches do you have, Exolate, and what are the fields I can bring over that tell me more about these customers? Or I can say, here's my pool of existing customers. Tell me more about what you have to offer from a demographic perspective. So like if Axiom has a segment that is, like if I'm a bank and Axiom has a segment of creditworthy borrowers, I can say, great, give me all of them except for this pool that is my current borrowers, or something like that. Then there's another feature that we're going to talk about in a second called lookalike modeling, where I can say, great, here's my 100 best customers. Give me everyone that has a similar media profile to these users. Pretty neat stuff. Then we have the ability to optimize within Audience Manager that does things like delivery log ingestion. So if we've got actual delivery of impressions that we want to get in that tell us things like what site we saw a customer on, what media that they saw, those sorts of things. Global frequency cap, if we say no more than 500 impressions a week for a user, or we want to specify that per segment or something like that, we have that ability. And then addressable audiences is one of our coolest features. This is where we are actually able to say, tell me, like if I've got a specific cookie pool and I want to run a campaign, tell me what % of my audience is going to be addressable with that campaign. It's kind of a neat feature. It allows you to understand in advance where the different profiles you have meet in the middle for campaign purposes. This is one of my favorites here. There's just a couple of these that I want to go specifically into. But if I've got a handful of customers and they're my best customers, and I want more like that, doesn't every marketer want that? I can actually create a campaign, and this is a screenshot here of Adobe Campaign, but the concept here is I want to create a high-value customer audience in Adobe Campaign, and I want to do it by leveraging the lookalike model. So this is a tool within our models that are within Audience Manager that says, high-value lookalikes. Give me users that are similar to my best users. We can then determine how many of our own cookies fit that profile. We can determine how many third-party cookies fit that profile. Then you can go right in through the tool and you can actually purchase those audiences for marketing purposes. So that means like I can literally be running a banner campaign on DoubleClick that is geared only toward people that are similar to my best customers. Really popular feature, one of the things that customers love. Data governance, this one's always important. This is where we talk about, what is our data export control? How is it going to prohibit us from either mixing or sharing data inappropriately in a manner that would either be considered a material breach of a privacy policy or otherwise run afoul of the law? This is a popular feature because it's going to help us here to let us know, like, hey, we can't do certain things. There's other ways that we have to consider this, and then it actually tells us, what the sources are. Before we make a mistake that's going to erode the trust that our customers have in us. And then finally, the ability to do smarter segmentation. So, with first and second party data, like, browsing behavior or demographics, I can actually bring that into other tools. And the example here is that we want to leverage website browsing behavior into an Adobe Campaign outbound email piece. So here I've created my segment rules down here are CRM age 26 to 34. They live in Los Angeles and they were on the site more than 10 minutes but spent less than $100. I can then create that destination for campaign, and then you see here the results of that query is actually feeding directly into what's happening on my my campaign. And that's part of being able to do that. Like I say, what are my controls on this data? Like as I'm building the import, what are the ways that I can actually leverage it, and what do I need to note on it? And then just talking about a couple of new features this year, addressable audiences gives you the insight into the match rate or overlap between the segments and then a destination. That helps, brands, publishers, and agencies make good decisions in terms of their segments and their target destinations. And then, just talking a little bit about how that data can find its way different places. It's a flexible platform. It's a foundation for getting your audiences around, and then, follows a lot of trends here. Now, I want to know how am I doing on time for you guys? I know we said we wanted to go about 45 minutes. I think we started a little bit late, but we haven't even talked about the device co-op yet, and that's probably the coolest feature, but I'll leave that up to you guys.
I don't know. You mean like the pace or just how are we doing time overall?
Yeah, I mean, from a timing perspective, I'm happy to talk for another however long to go through the device co-op, but I don't know if there's other program material or discussion items.
Colleen, Mitt, anybody else want to speak up on that?
I'm very curious about the data co-op and what's available today and what's going to be available a quarter from now in the roadmap.
Sure. So right now, the co-op is in beta. So depending on your relationship, I guess, with your sales team and that sort of thing, I mean, it's up. Adobe.com is using it. There are a couple of beta customers that are already into it, and then we are gearing up for an actual product launch of the co-op in, I believe, currently targeting like mid-September, although that's changed a few times. It's moved in and out, and so it was going to be early September at one point, then it was late September, and now it's back into mid-September. And in terms of the roadmap, I mean, that's really the exciting part is, just talking about like how many screens and how many devices that we've been seeing from users. And what we've learned already, just with Adobe.com being in the device co-op, we had started with this data here from the Adobe Digital Index in 2015. 88% of users are using 2.3 devices a day. Well, once we actually turned the co-op on, just on Adobe.com, we learned that number is actually quite a bit higher than we thought. It's not 2.3. That is the piece that we sort or that we cite from the Adobe Digital Index. But the other thing we've learned is that over 40% start a journey on one screen and finish on another. So that creates a lot of challenges for marketers. Problems that we're trying to solve, with the co-op include reporting. We want to defragment your conversion path. We want to be able to provide a consolidated conversion path that moves across devices. We also want to be able to create device-based reporting. We want to be able to allow someone to report on their customer and then understand their device behavior. We also want to be able to target consistently across devices and provide accurate conversion data. This is going to have a huge impact in target right at launch, just to be able to know whether your users are converting and you just didn't realize it, or whether your test maybe spanned the same user both with a control and a test content, helping to understand whether or not that user converted or not. From an advertising perspective, currently marketers are prospecting against devices. We talked a couple minutes ago about global frequency capping. Well, frequency capping is a major issue here because think about frequency caps are done on a per device basis. So I could have a 100 impression a day limit that I set per user, but if a user has, let's say, 5 devices, and that's not crazy, that's a work computer, a home computer, an iPad, a cell phone, and one other. And that could then raise that to 500 impressions a day. And at some point that's saturation. I mean, you need to understand that cross-device behavior to get that frequency cap to work properly. Then finally, attribution, understanding, hey, maybe I didn't credit a particular campaign because I didn't realize that user saw it, but if they saw it and they saw it on a different device, that's important. Then segmentation. We talked earlier about being able to combine traits into segments in Audience Manager. Well, with the device co-op, it actually opens that up across devices. So if I have a segment on one device and a segment on another device, I can combine them together. Now, just in the last 30 days, as of late July, when we made this presentation, we had 350 million unique visitors on Adobe.com. And what we learned with the device co-op is that it's actually 210 million people making up those 350 million unique visitors. So we learned right away, gave us some important statistics. In terms of the roadmap for it, I can tell you already, one of the exciting announcements at Summit 2017 is going to have to do with the device co-op moving outside the United States. Right now, we're hoping to move into EMEA and APAC in 2017. There's a lot of legal work being done to help make that work in various countries right now. So there's two kinds of links in the device co-op, but we're going to focus on deterministic links here. So in this example, a retailer has two visits that come to their site, one from a mobile device and one from a desktop device. On the other hand, a travel site, that same user logged in on both of those devices. Maybe they were printing a boarding pass, maybe they were trying to check into a room, but they were trying to do something. Well, with the device co-op, that retailer would then know that those two devices were associated with the same user. So if the user had been on the desktop device and browsed and maybe left something in a cart or otherwise interacted with a particular product, they can then target on that mobile device based on that data. Now, of course, I know what you're thinking. From a privacy perspective, what are the things that we're doing to help keep this from getting out of hand? For starters, user identity is never disclosed. So all that the co-op knows is that those devices are associated. It says John Doe there for a reason. That user is anonymous to us. That retailer does not know who John Doe is. They just know that those two devices have some sort of affiliation with each other. We've also provided a fairly unprecedented amount of transparency with the device co-op. Consumers can log into an Adobe created and Adobe hosted privacy tool that will allow users to see what devices of theirs are connected together and opt in or opt out of the device co-op per their own free will. And members of the co-op have to link to that tool. So, and any co-op member has to have in their privacy policy data on how consumers can get out of the co-op if they want to. Now, at launch, we're tackling 4 solutions. Whoops, wrong way. Analytics, Target, Audience Manager, and Media Optimizer. Now, analytics, the biggest thing that's happening to analytics as a result of the co-op, and this is in the fall release of analytics, is we want to introduce the concept of a person-centric view, customer-level data, and take it from being device-centric so the enterprise can really understand the customer journey. And the reason is that really, devices don't buy things, people do. So here we have an example illustrating where a marketer spent $1 per visitor, or so they thought, to get someone to their site with campaign 1. In campaign 2 at the bottom, they paid $2 for 1 visitor. And you start to learn, once you get the people metric out, that the actual cost per person for that campaign was lower when we were bidding for better media than it is in campaign 1, where we don't know as much. And what you're going to see is here in your marketing channels report, what's called the people metric, where we estimate the number of people based on the device co-op, and then all of your revenue and other metrics that are part of your marketing channels report are also going to see the introduction of this people metric. And then at launch, we're going to have the people metric available. And then one of the exciting announcements at Summit 2017 is going to have to do with people context. And context is going to have to do with analytics understanding behavior across devices to help you make decisions as an informed marketer on how to target that user. Speaking of target, what's Target going to do with the co-op? Well, one of the problems that we see as marketers, and we have Adobe.com with Deadpool on the cover here from earlier this year, is we want to target those users consistently across devices. So once we know that a user is in experience A of a test, we want to show experience A no matter what device they're on. So the co-op is going to actually increase our likelihood of recognizing that visitor even on the first impression. So if if we're getting co-op data on a user on that first impression, we're gonna know that that second device is linked to the first device. It's going to help us to create a consistent targeted experience on all of his or her devices and immediately understand and act on the activity results in the people view. And then there's an example here of what the people metric is going to look like in Target and how it's going to help get, how it's going to help the target user to get through here. Fewer people than devices increase conversion rate when viewing by actual people. More accurate reporting. Users are really converting, but they're converting through different devices. Media Optimizer is getting another sweet set of features here. We've got attribution features coming through. We've got reporting features coming through. We've got targeting features coming through, and then optimization features coming through that are all going to be enhanced by our ability to understand the user. Now, a current attribution problem is where we have, mobile display impression, a mobile search click, and then a conversion on a desktop device. We see that all the time, and then that campaign gets credit for it. Well, what we want to create is an environment where we are able to spread that credit across the devices so that we're able to optimize our campaigns properly. Also, the ability to retarget across devices. So, this example here, the user visits on the website, and then we want to target that user with ads. Well, we're able to target them, this is an example here. That user had visited Adobe.com from a desktop device, and then they visited CNN.com on a mobile device, and you see that we were able to target and ad at them that way. And finally, Audience Manager. This one's really cool. Co-op member A, we have a trait that the user likes cake and that the user likes pizza. With profile link, we might collapse those two traits into the profile and say the segment is that they love food because of cake and pizza. Co-op member B, they like video games. Well, we find with profile link plus the cross-device co-op, we actually find out that that's the same person. We are then able to combine those three traits that qualifies that user for a different segment altogether. So it's going to add devices per segment. It's going to enrich our segments with additional traits, and it's going to allow us to measure results even better. So from that perspective, these things, they all work together, they all help, they all go through, and they're all part of the device co-op at launch here in fall, or late summer, early fall 2016. Questions on the co-op?
This is Colleen. I'm curious what, as practitioners, we can do to prepare for the variants that the co-op is going to introduce in legacy data.
So it's not going to change the legacy data other than adding the people metric to it. So like your data from last year is still going to be your data from last year. It'll just add an additional metric to it.
I was curious about the Adobe.com example where you found out that uniques were uniques, but they no longer meant the same thing. And people were really 2/3 of that. I think that changes it's a game changer to me from an analytics perspective.
Absolutely.
And just, well, there's a new KPI on board. It's really, uniques really aren't uniques. And how to communicate, is it just merely as a practitioner around communication, or is there going to be sort of reduction in KPIs versus uniques versus people? Is there going to be an ability to build against people as well?
Well, none of the existing KPIs and metrics are going away as a result of the device co-op. It's just going to unlock a couple of additional metrics that marketers are kind of free to use per their own per their own taste and appetite for change. I think what you're going to see though is a lot of really good guidance that's going to help maybe understand and interpret the data that you already have in a new light. The other thing to note, and especially if you're an Analytics Premium customer, there is more attribution coming this fall than like any other release that, at least from what they've told me, is in it. So where the device co-op mixes with attribution on the platform is it helps to create a cross-device view for attribution purposes. Very, very important, very critical to note. Some of those features coming to Analytics Premium are really going to help you look across devices to do attribution in a lot of really clever ways.
That's great. Yeah, I see where you're going with that. And this roadmap is fantastic. So thank you.
It's very exciting. I'm probably more excited about the device co-op than anything that's come out in the last, probably since the advent of the Marketing Cloud and core services 3 years ago.
Is it an extra SKU, Dave, or is it on top of Analytics Premium and it's just in there because you have Analytics Premium, or is it just an extra feature SKU?
So right this minute, for beta customers, we're not charging anything. But at some point, it's going to cost extra to be in the co-op.
Okay.
And I don't know what that point is. That's like way above my pay grade. But they are, it's not lost on us that this is like one of the most important features that we have in the Marketing Cloud. And it's one of the most important things that we've built, in a couple of software versions now. It's not going to be free forever, but it's free right now, and that's one of the reasons that we had kind of granted, like the contracts are just now coming in, but like customers were like in a mad dash to chase down their salespeople at Summit because of that announcement. It's like, hey, it's free for a limited time. Like go find your sales guy and chase him down right now, and get some data. On how quickly you can get in the co-op.
All right. Does anybody have any questions? Well, thank you very much, Dave. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure. I'll coordinate with the team to send the slides out.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave.
Cool. Thanks, guys.